Welcome. This is Scale with Julia. I am Julia Pimsler. I'm a business scaling coach and training people in selling because you cannot take the sale out of scale. Been having a lot of fun with my new 50K in 21 days challenge cohort. I'm helping a group of women learn how to sell better, and they are already implementing their new scripts, learning how to guide conversations, making sure that they ask the right questions on sales calls, and I'm excited to hear all their wins tonight. But today we're going to cover a really fascinating topic. It's going to get a little psychological here and even a little biology lesson, so get ready. We're talking about why do people make decisions more with their emotions than with their rational thinking. And this is such an important part of understanding sales. The thing we need to remember as business owners is that we have a lot of data at our fingertips that we can share with our potential clients. We can tell them how great our programs are, how our services work so well, how our products are adored, and all the reasons that they should buy from us. But eventually, or not eventually, truly the reason they're making a decision has nothing to do with any of that. What it really has to do with is what is the emotion behind why they're making this purchase. And there are a number of things you can do during the sale to really figure out what is the emotion the person is having, what is the emotion that they want, and how can I help guide them towards the sale by better understanding that. Now, let's be clear, whenever we're talking about sales and especially emotions, people get nervous like, oh, is this manipulating people? Are you manipulating people's emotions? That is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is using your emotional intelligence, your EQ. And if you're a woman watching, good news, this is a place you may have an advantage over men who are selling. I'm going to make some broad generalizations now, but we are socialized as women to have very high EQ. So generally, we're able to read into situations in ways that some men are really very able to do, but a lot of men are not. So this is a place where we can tap into one of our superpowers, which is what is really happening in this conversation and how can I get at the emotions of my potential client and help them make the right decision. Now, when I say the right decision, I am making the assumption that you have an incredible product or service, that you deliver on all your promises, and that your clients would be lucky to work with you. If that is not the case, then disregard all of this. But all of my sales training is for people who are committed to serving their clients at the highest level. And if you're watching this, I believe that's you. So let me let you in on some of the things you could be doing to help your clients say yes more often. So now we're going to get into a little bit of a psychology lesson, psychology biology. So we all know what the prefrontal cortex. It's the front of your brain, and that is where the executive functions are in the brain. So timekeeping, planning, making sure that you can find your way somewhere, that's all executive function behavior. The mistake we sometimes make in sales is that we think that our clients are making their decisions with their prefrontal cortex, with these executive functions. Like, well, tell me how long it takes, and tell me what you're going to do, and tell me how much it costs. And if all of that was enough, then you would be closing every single one of your deals. But I would bet you're not closing every single one of your deals. That's probably why you're watching. And I get it. No one closes every one of their deals. But we'd love to help you get to a place where instead of closing maybe 30 to 50% of your deals, you're closing more like 70 to 90% of your deals. And if you're a small business owner, the rule of thumb is the CEO should be the main salesperson, and you should be able to close somewhere around that 70 to 90% close rate. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, what's a close rate, Julia? That's just very simply if you were to track 10 calls or 10 meetings with potential clients, how many of them would say yes? If 7 of the 10 say yes, you have a 70% close rate. And often when people are looking to make more money, they ignore this one big area where they could improve, right? They're like, I need more leads. I need to do more marketing. I need to do this. I need to do that. When in fact, if you just improved your close rate, you could maybe make twice as much money just by being able to close more of the deals where you get on a call or go to a meeting. So let's get into the psychology of this. We talked about the prefrontal cortex. That's hard to say. Now we're going to talk about the limbic system. Perhaps you've heard of that. That is the part of the brain that oversees your hormonal reactions to things, your emotional reactions, and where a lot of decision making is made. Now, I'm not saying the prefrontal cortex doesn't make decisions. It might decide, like, let me move this dentist appointment from Wednesday to Friday. But when you're making a big decision about, should I join this coaching program? Should I hire this person to do my SEO? Do I trust this marketer with my $20,000 a month budget? Now the limbic system is kicking up. And so let's describe what's in the limbic system so you know what you're dealing with when you're on a sales call or in a sales meeting. The limbic system has three parts. It's got the amygdala, the hypothalamus, and the hippocampus. And there will not be a test, so you can just let this wash over you. The point I'm trying to make is that a very complex set of things happens when someone is about to make a decision. And I'll tell you what each of these parts of the limbic system monitor, and you'll see why it's important to speak to the limbic system when you're making a sale. So we'll start with the hippocampus. That is where memory is kept, and it also helps you with spatial orientation. So where am I in this room, or where am I, when you get out of the subway trying to figure out where to go? The hippocampus is going to help you with all of that. And maybe you've been there before. If you live in New York, you get out of the subway, you recognize a restaurant you've been to. That's all getting kicked up by the hippocampus. So your memories are coming into play. The second part is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is what keeps your body in stasis, meaning not too hot, not too cold, not panicking, making sure that everything kind of stays the same. And that's very important in sales, because when you're selling something to someone, you're asking them to make a change. They're going to be hiring you to change something about their business, about how they work, about how they see the world. So it's very important to know that a part of their brain is working on homeostasis, keep everything the same. And that is also this hypothalamus, what can respond to stress and try to just even out the system by perhaps producing more adrenaline or cortisol to kind of even things out. And then the last part of the brain to mention in the limbic system is the amygdala. And this plays a really important role in sales, because the amygdala is what kicks up fight, flight, or fear if you fear that you're going to be in peril in some way, in danger. So the amygdala kicks up whenever you're making a big decision, and spending money is making a big decision. So that will start kicking up all kinds of cortisol that floods through your system. It can make people feel kind of nauseous or panicky. And you might see that happen in your clients or customers right before they're getting ready to pay. They'll start having all these excuses or reasons why maybe it's not the right time. And knowing how to handle those is critical. So let's just review. Your clients have a prefrontal cortex that allows them to make very rational decisions. But when you're selling to them, it's really their limbic system that's making the decision. And then they're going to justify it with their prefrontal cortex. And in the limbic system, you've got all kinds of levers being pulled that are kicking out cortisol, kicking out adrenaline, right? Adrenaline is the hormone that makes you run faster or kind of make your heart race or talk faster. But cortisol is that negative hormone that makes you feel kind of anxious or panicky. So your client is going through all these things when they're making a decision. And depending on how good you are at managing the limbic part of their brain is going to determine whether or not they say yes to you. So here's something to think about. Could you get at the emotion that your client is having while they're talking to you? And if you can name that emotion, they're going to, one, relax a bit because they feel seen and heard. And two, they're going to trust you more. So maybe your client is feeling fearful, your potential client, because they hired a coach before and now they're thinking of hiring you, and it's the limbic brain, right, is kicking up these memories of when they did that last time and it didn't work out. And maybe there's some cortisol running through their bodies, right? I just enrolled someone this morning for my program who had spent a lot of money on a coach a few years ago, and it never panned out. She never got one customer from it. So knowing all that was so important when I was talking to her, because I could name her fears and say, well, I imagine you're feeling a little bit hesitant about even considering hiring a coach, given what happened last time. There's probably some fear kicking up for you. And she was like, yes, there is. There's some fear. And she talked to me a little bit more about that, and we got it out on the table. That's an example of kind of getting at your client's emotions. So if there's negative emotions there, you want to kind of surface them and make that more comfortable. The second thing you want to do is understand the emotion that they want to have and that they're hoping your product or service is going to get them. So I told a story in one of my sales training classes about buying a ring at a jeweler I go to a lot. And the day I went to buy that ring, I was celebrating that I had just found this new apartment that I moved into. It had been months of looking. I finally signed the lease. I was all excited and I wanted to celebrate. So I went into this jewelry shop that I've been to many times before, but I often buy things that are, like a little cute $30 ring or like maybe a $100 bracelet. But this day I wanted to buy a ring that would be kind of my marker of the day I found this apartment. I was feeling celebratory. And so I went in and I found a ring that I really liked. It was $800, which is a lot more than I usually spend on a ring. I got 2 kids. One of them's in college. That's just not where I spend my money. But on this day, I wanted to walk out of that store with a beautiful ring that symbolized this success of finding this apartment and would be a great memory for me every time I wore the ring. So the salesperson was very good at identifying my emotions. She watched me trying on the ring and she noticed that it was a little too big. It was a little too big. So I was already starting to think, well, maybe I should leave it. Maybe it's not meant to be. And she engaged me and found out why I was there. What was I doing? And I said, I just signed on this apartment. I'm so excited. This is kind of like my celebratory ring. And she said something to me that was a game changer. She said, I can see you really want to walk out of here with that ring. And she was absolutely right. The emotion that she tapped into was, I wanted to feel the joy and the celebration of, I just bought myself this wonderful gift. So even though it was too big and she was saying, well, we could send it out to get resized. And then again, she could read me. I was kind of like, well, that's not the vision I had. I don't want to pay for this expensive ring and then walk out with no ring. And once she said, I can see you want to walk out here with that ring, and got my, yes, that's right. She said, you know what? Why don't we just have you take the ring today? It's not that big. Let me feel. Oh, it's just a tiny bit big. And if it bothers you, bring it back anytime and we will send it out to be resized. Bingo. That was the magic statement. I got to have my ring, have my celebration moment, and know I could come back and get it resized if it did indeed turn out to be too big. So that's a great example of someone using emotional intelligence to read the client, because she could have just harped on about the quality of the gold or the stone and how precious it was, or, oh, they only have 3 of them in the store. There's all kinds of tactics that she could have used to get someone who's clearly interested, but not all the way there, to say yes. So is there some learning that you could extract from this for your business? Whether you're selling a marketing consulting package, or you're selling coffee, or you're selling luxury goods like at the ring store, you're definitely dealing with your client's emotions. And if you haven't stopped to think about what's the emotion they have when they walk in, or when they get to our website online, or when they get on a call with me, or we jump on a Zoom, what's the emotion they have when they come on? How can I address that and be on the lookout for it? And then what's the emotion they're trying to have? And I can help get them closer to that. Those are a couple of questions that could make you another $100,000 in your business right away. I want to see if we have any questions. I'm going to go over to the comment section. Give me a minute while I see if we have anybody with us this week. Sometimes there's some great questions and comments in the chat after, and I do try to answer all of those, even if you ask them after the live is already done. Hey, Kevin, nice to see you here too. So let's see. He says, didn't expect there to be so much science and psychology. Yeah, I spared you the deeper dive. It was going to be even worse than that. From a long ago friend and colleague from the indie film world. So glad you're doing well. Thank you. And really good to see you. I'd love to know if you have any sales that involve emotions, Kevin. Feel free to post here. And yeah, we go way back. Good to see you again. That's the fun of going live on LinkedIn, right? You never know who will pop up. But every single business has this emotional component, and most people have not really thought it through. You know who did a great job of thinking it through is Disney. All of their advertising taps into the emotions of the customers. It's how do you want to feel that magic, right? That's really what they're selling, is those magical moments with your children, with your family at a Disney resort, right? Or what are those two called? There's Disney World and Disneyland. And when you look at their advertising, it right away brings up all these emotions, right? They show these great moments with the families. They show you, the look of awe on your children's faces. And that's really what they're selling. So the big companies have already done this work. The question is, how could you do it for your small business in a way that will get more of your clients to say yes? And if you need help with that, or if you're listening to these sales tips and thinking, you know what, I think I have a few more things to learn about sales, feel free to check out our programs at Million Dollar Women. We have our accelerator that is a spring cohort launching soon. That's to help businesses get to the $1 million mark. And we have a 1-month sprint sales program called the 50K in 21 Days Challenge. And we have those launching, every few months. So check it out. There's probably one starting soon. And you can always set up a call to talk to me about your specific sales challenges by going to scalewithjulia.co. Sales is everywhere, right? It's in our business. It's getting a new job. It's getting a promotion. So if there's one thing to get right and to focus on in the next few months, it's upping your sales skills. Great having this time with you guys. Thanks for joining me for Scale with Julia. I will be right back here next week with a new topic. And if there's something you would like me to teach on, feel free to reach out right here on LinkedIn or in the comments of Scale with Julia. And I will be sure to cover that on one of my upcoming shows. Oh, and Kevin said, PBS does the emotional sell well too. Yes, although they would not acknowledge it in the same way. Well, Kevin, I would say any of the companies that are successful are using the emotional sell, because you cannot separate the emotions from the decision to buy. And, I'm glad I read your comment, because it reminded me that I forgot to mention a book that I drew from a lot in preparing for today. I read it years ago, but I reread it, and you guys might want to check it out. It's called Sway. It is all about the irresistible pull of irrational behavior. And it talks about the intersection of business and psychology, and why we need to understand psychology in order to do well in sales and in business. It's written by Ori Brofman and Ram Brofman. They are brothers. It's a quick, fun read. You can check it out on Audible or buy it at your favorite bookstore. And I highly recommend this if you want to ramp up your understanding of psychology and how that could impact your sales. Great to have this time with you today. I will see you next week or sometime soon here on LinkedIn, or hopefully in the real world. And until then, stay brave and go big.